Hello, Senator. Not a great day for Chuck Schumer. How is this going over in the Senate?
Morning, Benny. Well, I'm just glad that we found 8 Democrats that were rational and decided to end this. It really has been a travesty to hold government employees and the American population hostage for their political demands was pretty sick. You had one Democrat staffer say that we're not going to end this until planes start falling out of the sky. I'm very grateful that didn't happen. But, we stood pretty firm. We stood very firm. We did not cave to their demands to continue to mask over, hide the miserable failure that Obamacare is, the fact it's pushing premiums, causing them to skyrocket. Again, it's very difficult, national averages, that type of thing. One thing I looked at was a 40-year-old individual. Their premiums on average, state by state, have gone up 169%. That's 4.3 times the rate of inflation, which has increased 39% since the start of Obamacare. So it's been a disaster. And that was the whole thing, is they were trying desperately to try and continue to paint that over, to mask it over, to hide the fact that their Obamacare policy has miserably failed. And I'm just glad that Republicans stood strong. Now, there's a small subsection of those individuals above 400% poverty line whose subsidies completely go away. Those individuals have been harmed by Obamacare to a great extent. I'd kind of like to help those folks, but not until Democrats admit the extent of the problem and quit lying about the fact. I heard it last night on the Senate floor. 20 million Americans are going to see their premiums double. No, that's just not true. 22 million of the 24 million people on the exchanges, their subsidies continue at the original Obamacare subsidy rates. And because premiums are skyrocketing at average 26%, the actual dollar amount of those subsidies will be increasing next year. They may have to pay more in terms of their net premium, but their gross premiums are going up 26%, and their subsidies are increasing as well. So those, I know that's a lot of numbers. That's the truth. There hasn't been a whole lot of truth spoken by Democrats during this entire shutdown.
I hate that you senators are debating and in charge of healthcare policy. I hate it. The more I listen to senators, the more I listen to some of the people like the Mazie Hironos of the world, the more I'm like, man, I wouldn't trust you to rent a Lime bike scooter, and not drive it directly into traffic. You're some of the dumbest people, not you, Senator, we love you, but senators are some of the dumbest people on earth. I mean, and it's grotesque that that these styles of policies are sitting before the Senate. It was never intended to be that. And it's horribly damaging. I don't want to go back and relitigate history, but how damaging was John McCain voting against, you were there for that fight. And the Obamacare truly was well and true on the ropes. What was the Republican solution here? And what did John McCain do that night?
Well, first of all, I hate to report the Republican solution back then was not very good. It was what the House sent over to us was not a very good plan. What we need to do, and part of the problem with this is you need the tools to be able to do it. Trying to do it through reconciliation is very difficult. Obamacare wasn't passed totally through reconciliation. They had 60 votes at one point in time. So the problem you have in Washington, D.C. is it seems to be pretty much an information and fact-free zone. Everybody has their solutions. It maybe sounds good. The good news, I think, currently is what President Trump tweeted. I think that was prompted by a lot of the things that we're doing in the Senate, people like Rick Scott, who actually knows healthcare. One of our principles is take the money we're spending, give it to the American people, and give them the freedom to buy the type of insurance plan they want. What Obamacare did is it did completely dismantle the individual insurance market, put in place these, Rube Goldberg, very prescriptive policies, destroyed high-risk pools that weren't perfect, could have been tweaked to cover people with pre-existing conditions, but it's literally that you forced those small percentage of the American public, back then it was about 12 million people on the individual exchanges, carry the entire cost burden of covering people with pre-existing conditions. So that's one of the reasons that premiums have skyrocketed, doubled, tripled, some cases quadrupled in some of these states. It's just the faulty design. We're going to have to repair all that damage, but we can't necessarily do it all through reconciliation. And we've got to get our act together. We've got to come up with our own plan, but it's a good start with President Trump saying, What money we're spending on healthcare, subsidizing people's care, give it to them. Let them decide what kind of plan, things like short-term plans, association plans, all those things are outlawed because of Obamacare. We need to give Americans their freedom back and try and get government as much as possible out of it. Part of a big problem is just the third-party payer system, government, and even health insurance. It's a third-party payer system. For every dollar we spend on healthcare, the patients kick in maybe 10 cents. So we have no idea what anything costs other than our insurance rate and our taxes. That's a broken market system. We need to bring more consumerism back, but you do that with things like health savings accounts. Again, they're basic principles. If you understand the marketplace, I come from the private sector, I actually do. Rick Scott comes from the private sector. He understands hospitals as well. So I think we've got some good people now involved in this process. And again, a president with the right mindset, the overall macro approach here is turn the money we're spending over the American people, again, with controls, but let them have the freedom to pick whatever insurance policy that suits their needs as opposed to, again, this highly prescriptive policies that Obamacare established.
And it just sickens the soul. I don't pretend to be an expert on these things. I'll never attempt to be smarter than I actually am. I think I have a really nice, very comfortable, very cozy room temperature IQ that I'm operating with here. I'm from the Midwest. I went to community college, so I'm not going to try to be an expert on healthcare policy. But I know this. I'm smarter than Cory Booker. Okay? I've heard Cory Booker give a speech. I've witnessed I wouldn't trust this guy to be able to operate a Burger King drive-through. And yet he's part of 100 voices on trillion-dollar American healthcare industry and the regulation of it and where we're going to spend all this money. It's it's insane, man. It's just so stupid.
We had a hearing last week in my committee called Assessing the Damage Done by Obamacare. And my ranking member, after hearing all the damage done, we had great witnesses, we were just laying it out. Here are all the problems, here's all the damage done. At the very end of the hearing, he goes, where are all these millions that have been harmed by Obamacare? I don't know anybody who's been harmed by Obamacare. And I said, your own witness. They brought in a mom from Madison, Wisconsin. Her employer dropped coverage in 2016 because you had the Obamacare alternatives, right? She bought a silver plan at $1,000 a month, couldn't afford it. A couple years later, she switched to a bronze plan, $14,000 deductible, had medical bills, had to take out an $18,000 home equity line of credit. And I'm going, your own witness is a victim of Obamacare. So that's the problem we're dealing with. It's right in front of his eyes. His own witness is a victim of, has been harmed by Obamacare, and he's in a complete state of denial. The entire Democrat Party is in a state of denial. And what's the first step in solving a problem? You have to admit you have one. The only problem they admit to, we're not throwing enough money at it. That's not going to solve the problem. So again, we got a real problem with Democrats in a state of denial. They will never admit they were wrong with Obamacare. Again, Obamacare wasn't about bringing down costs as much as President Obama lied about that. Obamacare was the first step in a single payer system. And that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to jam us, throw a couple, $400 billion more at this problem, and we will eventually get to where we always intended to go, which was complete government-run healthcare, and then we are totally screwed.
Yeah. Yep. It is, man, it's a tough conversation to have because it's all left-wing coded, and they were able to get Obamacare over the finish line. They were able to break it forever, and they'll never own it, and they'll just use it as a cudgel to beat Republicans with into eternity. And so it sucks. It was such a massive miscalculation by the Republican Party at the time, and every year since, it just gets worse and worse and worse. You'd hate to see the housing market go that way. It's something that I think that obviously a lot of people are focusing on right now. And it's something that this show, we've been doing a lot of work on it. It's something that Charlie and I were working on before his assassination to unlock the American dream. Now, healthcare obviously is a massive part of that. You want young people to be able to afford healthcare. But before young people care or think about healthcare, they think about do I have a shot at the American dream? Do I have a shot at owning a home? Do I have a shot at actually starting my life, where you can't bring your wife home to the group house right after getting married? Nobody wants to do that. And you can't raise kids in a single room apartment, with 100 strangers. And so I want to ask just sort of an open-ended question here, Senator, as somebody who clearly cares about the future of the nation. Is there anything at all like cooking in the Senate or in Congress in order to assist first-time homebuyers or young people to get the age down from 40, the average age of Americans first-time home buying? 40 is the age? That's crazy.
Well, the first step is we have to start reducing spending.
Yeah.
Get back to a pre-pandemic level of spending. You're going to continue to drive inflation higher when we have deficits of 1.8, $1.9 trillion, which we've had for the last 5 years. The projected deficit over the next 10 years is going to average over $22.6 trillion a year. So we got to get spending under control. The first thing we need to do is there's a great book written, this is 15, 20 years ago by Charles Murray called Real Education. One of his final conclusions is too many kids go to college. Now, listen, if you have a degree in mind that is actually going to benefit you and be able to pay your student loan off, I guess you can borrow money for it. But we have enticed our children to collectively incur $1.7 trillion in debt.
Yes.
We are handing out degrees that employers could care less about, they don't value. So we've enticed our children to dig themselves this enormous hole that's very difficult for them to get out of. So I'm truly hoping, now that you have AI replacing an awful lot of those college degree kids, what we still need? We still need people to work. We still need tradesmen and craftspeople. What was Mike Rowe? The dirty jobs. They're not dirty jobs. They're great jobs. They're great jobs in manufacturing. We need people to, do plumbing, do electrical work, construct homes, build things. I mean, those are very satisfying careers. I mean, you get people in construction building a really cool house. That's a great thing. So we first of all have to make sure that our young people understand they have all kinds of options. It's not just about a 4-year degree. If there's something that you want to do with a 4-year degree, great. But not every kid is cut out for it, and certainly not incurring the type of student debt. I mean, it's absurd. I ask kids, these colleges are bringing students into my conference room, lobbying for more money. I just ask them, so how much you paying in tuition? And then when they tell me $40 or $50 or $60,000, I go, are you kidding me? Do you think the education you're getting is worth $60,000 a year? At that point, their counselors never bring them back in, which is good, because I really don't want these kids being used as pawns to lobby Congress for more spending that we can't afford. But the point I'm making, it is absurd, the cost of college, and it is not worth it. It's simply not worth it.
Why don't we normalize, the boomers on average own close to 2.8 homes per couple. So what the boomers on average own. We need to facilitate the actual movement of that property and that wealth to the younger generations, Gen X, Millennials, Gen Alpha, Gen Z. And we got to figure out a way to actually pass down and pass on that wealth. I would like to normalize leaving your kids a home instead of a college education, Senator, because both of them will cost $250,000. Which one's going to serve your child better? An actual home with equity and value that increases, or a college education that's just going to be a debt slavery and rent slavery for the rest of your life? I don't know where the hell did we lose that, Senator? That's what people should be doing. Boomers should be ravenous to try and do that for their children, but sadly they're not.
Well, again, it starts with our totally broken education system. It's not totally broken, but it's pretty messed up.
Yeah.
And I'm highly concerned about private equity coming in and scooping
Correct.
up and driving up the price of homes. Again,
True.
There are many, many problems here. But again, I go back to just basic life path and career path, and it's just gotten so out of whack. You got to get a 4-year degree. No, you don't.
No, you don't.
I mean, you
don't.
just simply don't. And you certainly shouldn't get $100,000, $200,000 in debt, because you will never dig yourself out of that hole.
Correct.
As we've seen during the Biden administration, where they had to pay off hundreds of billions of dollars of student loan debt. So again, debt is bad. I fortunately had a professor in college who started out saying the reason they call a debt instrument a bond is because when you put yourself in debt, you put yourself into bondage. And nobody wants to be in bondage. Unfortunately, we're not telling that to our kids today. We're encouraging them to get in all this debt.
It's insane.
It's a real disservice to our young people.
It's crazy. Normalize leaving your kids' houses. That's my wife and my plan is like, you're not going to go, he's like, you're not going to go to school. You're not going to go to college, right? You're going to learn a trade. You're going to apprentice with daddy. You're going to come work either at a like family business. And then when you get married, that will be like what we wish to, instead of going hundreds of thousands of dollars into debt for a college education that could well be meaningless, that instead we'll give you a house to like start your life, right? We'll try and like, or at least help you out, right? To like get your first, that's positive movement in society. You're exactly right about the education cartels. Speaking of a cartel, the Clinton cartel, news breaking this morning, pop up the article, please. The Clinton files then delivered to Congress, Pam Bondi and Kash Patel, new evidence about the First Family's corruption, effectively as foreign influence. What they're saying is that there is a massive foreign influence operation through the Clinton Foundation. Senate Judiciary Committee, you're quite familiar with that, Senator. Can you give us insight here as to what's going to be happening to Bill and Hillary Clinton? What's going on here?
Well, we just received the documents, so I haven't seen them myself personally. Let's face it, Peter Schweizer's wrote about Clinton cash, more than a decade ago.
Yeah.
So many of these things we know. We absolutely understand this. We know that these people are criminals. It's the matter of having the documentary evidence to really pin it on them. And that's been bundled up inside the Department of Justice, inside the FBI. So then Trump's first term, again, I think these documents were hidden. They weren't made available to prosecutors. I think that's what's going to be revealed. Again, we were going to see the corruption of our federal law enforcement under Biden and under Obama. I mean, to me, it's obvious that's been what's happening, but you need the documentation. My concern, Benny, we found a bunch of documents in a skiff in a bunch of burn bags. They ran out of time. How many documents did they destroy? My guess is they destroyed a lot of documents. So that's the issue we have. To me, all this stuff is known. This is obvious. I mean, these people are criminals, including President Obama, who knew full well what the Steele dossier was, a Clinton campaign dirty trick, and yet he helped engineer the Mueller investigation with John Brennan. I mean, we know all of these things. It's obvious these guys did this, disrupted our democracy, did more damage to it than anything China or Russia could ever hope to accomplish. But the mainstream media is in their back pocket, so this doesn't get the kind of public and publicity it needs. That's our challenge. That's the challenge of Congress. That's the challenge of the Trump administration. Pam Bondi, Kash Patel. We need to first and foremost expose all of these things, but at the same time, they're going to try and prosecute the crime, and that's going to be the tension. They don't want to blow their prosecution. That generally means that Congress is not going to get available or have available to it a lot of these documents, which means the public's not going to hear about it until there's a trial. And my concern is if it's just a narrow indictment, do all these records get sealed up like they did under John Durham? So again, you've got that tension. I listen, you had Ed Martin on. God bless him. He helped get the pardon for people like Judge Trupus and the alternate electors in Wisconsin. I mean, people persecuted by this lawfare. There's a lot of work to be done. Pam Bondi needs help. She needs a lot of attorneys there to these review teams to classify information. There's a lot of work to be done.
What do you see happening here? What is the purpose and intent of these documents from the Clintons? In closing, Senator, what you say that it's criminal, and you say it's been cataloged and classified as criminal and has been exposed in Peter Schweizer's book. I totally agree with you. What happens next in the Judiciary Committee? Yeah,
from my standpoint, more disclosure, or more exposure, okay, and disclosure. I don't know what statute of limitations. That's part of the problem with James Comey. A lot of these things, statute of limitations already expired. So that's a real issue. So understand the number one part of accountability is exposure. And that's really what Congress can do. We can't indict, we can't convict, we can't hold trials other than impeachment trials. Our job is to try and gather the documents, demand them, work with Pam Bondi, work with Kash Patel, get the American public to understand this, but then the American public has to open its eyes. And the mainstream media has to be more honest. That'll probably never happen. So the good news is we've got folks like you, we've got alternate media, we have some conservative outlets, people who want to have their eyes open. The information's out there.
In conclusion here, Senator, will Chuck Schumer survive what is being seen as a betrayal of his party here during the shutdown?
It's hard to say. I mean, they're beating up on him pretty bad. Again, shutting down the government never really inures to the benefit of the party that shut it down. I'm glad that is the case today. And I'm also glad, again, that President Trump stood strong, said, no, we're not going to cave to the basically blackmail. And we're going to repair the damage done to Obamacare, but we're going to do it using free market principles, using freedom of choice on the part of Americans, and we'll give them the money to use as they see fit.
I look forward to watching you work with Senate Minority Leader AOC. It's going to be amazing. That's going to be really exciting for us.
Hopefully they don't elect her leader right off the bat.
Bro, respectfully, you see the way that it's going. That's probably exactly what they're going to do. But we'll see. And if you follow Ron Johnson, the great senator from Wisconsin, then you know all about this. He has 700,000 subscribers here on his X. Make sure that you are fighting with the people who fight for you. Godspeed, Senator.
Take care.